that person, right? What are the tools that they are using? You should know about their tools, their daily life, their salary, their motivations, what makes them appear good in front of their bosses, what gets them promoted. In the earlier example that I said, the demand generation person, that person cares about MQLs, right? Marketing qualified leads, for example. So that's how you define your customers. Obviously, when you start off a product or when you're building a company, you don't know that exactly when you start off, but that is the process, right? You have to, you know that here is the detail that I want to get to. And then you go down that path until you get to that kind of clarity. If that makes sense, feel free to ask questions if you want me to double click on any of that. Now, once you get there, then the next thing is you know this is the customer, you have to go out and talk to them. So this is where you do the product validation, customer discovery, customer validation, whatever you call it. Most of the products that I have seen fail because of this one thing product managers don't do. They don't talk to enough customers and they don't process the information in the right way. And this is by far the number one reason why companies and products fail too. There are one of the questions that I get when I say this is, but Arjun, how do we do it, right? If you're a big company like a ZoomInfo, it's very easy for you to say that, okay, go do customer validation. You just have to, you need 20 customers to talk to. You just go to your customer success and say, I need 20 customers like this, and customer success will give me the list of the customers I can go and speak with. That's what happens when you're at a big company. But when you're at a smaller company, what do you do, right? You have your network, you have your friends' network, and the professional network that we call as LinkedIn or outside that. So, I mean, networks like BPMA are amazing for that, right? Especially given the fact that there are so many like-minded individuals that you get to meet in like one place, makes it like a really good place for you to validate your thought processes. What I did, again, going back to an example of my first company, like I said, I was pretty young and I didn't have any network. So what I did is back then I would go into LinkedIn. This was free LinkedIn, 2013. I would send 150 connection requests every single day. I would wake up, put a search and open every profile in a new tab and go send connection requests with a personalized message saying something like, I'm looking to talk to you about this particular thing. Would you be open to spending 20 minutes to helping out a young startup? Something like that. Out of 150, obviously I would spruce up my LinkedIn profile pretty good before I do that. And I see that about 60 to 75 people accept out of the 150 requests every day that I send. And once they accept my request, I would send a message back to them. And then out of that, about 10 people would kind of respond back saying that something, good to meet or not interested, whatever. Out of the 10 to 15 people who respond, I get about 1 to 2 meetings a day. So I wake up in the morning, send 150, pretty much every single day I would book at least 1 to 2 meetings. This is not a sales endeavor per se, it's a sales process, but it's not a sales endeavor. I'm not trying to sell. I'm just trying to vet my thoughts. And I'm being upfront about it with these people. And many people are super happy to help in those situations. So by doing this for 30 days, I now set up somewhere between 40 to 60 customer interviews, which is what I did. And that's how I kind of pivoted my first successful product into a more successful product by doing these customer interviews. That's how you go about the validation. But then people do all of these things, right? And then still fail. And some of the reasons why I see that happen, one of them is they would go and interview the wrong people. Right? You got to be really careful that you are talking to the right customer segment. For example, if you have a product you think is meant for SMBs, but then you talk to a person with more of an enterprise background, that person will ask different questions, have different needs. So you should be very careful who you talk to from a customer segment standpoint. And once you get to that person, the other error that I see that product manager makes is they either give prompting questions and invalidate their thoughts themselves. I'll give an example. I'll take David as an example here. Hey, David, I'm building this really cool app and it will help you save your taxes and do really good on your personal finance. How do you like that?
Well, it sounds pretty good.
Yeah, would you use it?
I think I would.
Yeah. So this is what happens, right? Like, so product managers sometimes stop here and say that, yeah, David really needs this or something like that. And I have 30 people like David say yes to me. David said yes, but we also know that David is a really nice guy, and David does not say no just like that, right? So you just made it difficult for David to say no, right? So the real question that you ask is, David, let's continue. Oh, looks like, David, you have that problem. What do you do today to handle your personal finance?
Oh, I handle it myself.
Yeah, through Excel sheet or something?
Exactly.
Okay. If it is such a pressing problem, David, how much do you think you would pay a month? Do you think you would pay $49 a month for the solution?
Oh, I guess that depends.
See, that is where you got your first negative, right? So it's not really $49 worth for David. Now you get into the details of how exactly can you make David pay $49. Hey, John, you seem to have a question. Go ahead. You're muted.
Yes.
So I agree with everything you're saying here, but I think, and this is where I think there's a big opportunity for product management as a whole. Like you started with, I found a problem that, customers in a specific market have or fit a specific profile. We know it's a problem. And then we go into validating and going down the path you're going now. And tell me if I missed it, but I think one of the things that we fail to do too often is we don't ask why they have the problem, why it is a problem, what happens if I don't solve the problem, and what is the customer doing, like why can't they solve the problem, right? It's all the why questions, because I think if we just go down the path of solving the problem without understanding the outcome that customers want and how they're going to measure success, I think the risk of building a great product that misses the mark goes way up. So
Absolutely.
Did I miss all the why parts of this equation up front because I joined a little bit late?
No, we were actually getting to it, John. Literally the next thing that I was going to talk about was about asking the questions. I just had one point before I would get there. You explained it beautifully, John. I was getting into it. I was just gonna close out that last piece that I said. When you have somebody saying that I would pay for your product or service, you ask 10 people, 6 people say they will pay, it means that 2 of them might pay. That's what it really means, right? So when you have enough of those people, that is when you have like a validated problem. And the way to validate even further is exactly what John was saying, by asking a lot of questions. Mostly it starts with the why question. Why is it a problem? And why do you do it that way? Why is it not working today? And then you get into like, how exactly do you plan to handle this? And then what questions like, what does success look like here? If I give you this, is that a success? Is a mobile app a success versus a web app a success? Is a little bit of data entry okay? Do you need AI and ML here? Like, so I'm just extending on John's point about asking a lot of why questions. And Eric Rice talks about this in Lean Startup, I believe, about the 5 whys that you have to ask as a product manager to head down the path of getting to the right answer in terms of the product validation.
We have a question that might be a good time to raise it from Prachi. What are your thoughts on innovating when users may not know what they want or may not even know that is a problem?
Yeah, excellent question. So my thing is, it depends on what you're building, right? There are some things where you have to really ask and give exactly what customers are asking for. But in most cases, I am a big fan of asking customers to tell us their problems and what exactly they are solving and what does success look like, and leave the solutioning part out. So if we ask for a solution, then customer will tell us something, right? That might not be the right solution. I've had this experience where I was running my second company, and a customer success person is coming to me and saying that, hey, the customer needs this with the chat platform. We were a chat platform company at that time. And that was very core. That is a very core feature to the product, that a change in that would mean that the whole product principle of the product is changed. And I asked, like, why? What? I kept probing down. And finally, what it turned out to be was the customer wanted better notifications and alerting, and had nothing to do with the core functionality of whatever we were going to do. So Prachi is specifically answering, ask your customers for all the problems that they have and the success that they are looking for. And we as the product managers, we do the solutioning part and then vet that solutioning along with the customers. Yep. Perfect. Keep them coming, keep the thoughts and questions coming. I'll also give one example of how I did a validation. This was again with my first company. I got to my problem statement. Right now I need to validate. With my first 4 products, I did not do validation. So I failed with all the 4 products. The 5th one, I did not want to repeat the same mistake that I did. So what I ended up doing is back during that time, 2014, 2013 timeframe, it's still there. It's called launchrock.com. It's kind of like a Wix or something like that, where you can quickly put together a page. So what I did is I downloaded a random Google image of a dashboard. I put that as the background. I went into LaunchRock and created a launch page, put a random logo from somewhere and put the product name as Vibe, V-I-B-E. And I put, we help you find more information about your prospects and customers. If interested, subscribe. I put this LaunchRock page, set it up in like 30 to 45 minutes. It's pretty simple to do that. Then I created a fake profile on Quora. I created a fake profile and then I went into a bunch of sales discussions and said that, hey, it looks like a company is working on a product called as Vibe. Like, do you want to go out and check it out? And I drove about 300 people to come onto that page and 97 of them subscribed to that. That was the early validation that I got. And then obviously I got on calls with many of the 97 people. The fake profile is not the focus, right? At that point, I was a startup with 0 money. So I had to figure out some guerrilla ways to get traffic going. But you can use ads, you can post it on Product Hunt, you can ask your friends to share it with people. There are multiple ways to drive traffic to the places where you are validating. But the core is to have a validation place and a validation process to make sure the product is validated. Now, the other thing, once you do all of this, right, now that your problem is there, customer segment is there, they will pay for this problem, how much, we have some idea of how much they're going to pay, but not sure, and that's fine. Now, the thing is, how do we scope it right so that we are defining the right MVP? I forgot to add the attribution to this image. This is not my image. I forgot the person's name. Somebody else created this image, but I really like the image. There is also a story that I really like about, so when we did my second company's validation, the MVP scoping, what we did is we have to come up with an MVP that is very easy for us to create. And we were like three people, 2 developers at that point. So what we did is I just told my guys that, hey, here is this platform, chat platform that is not really well used at that time, but I like how the product was built. So I literally told my team, hey, don't worry about it a lot. Just copy the look and feel of that particular product pixel by pixel and give me a hard-coded version of what we are thinking. So they built pretty much a copied chat platform with some interactions that we think is what the world needs. And that hard-coded version is what I used to validate my second product. People use Figma, for example. There's at ZoomInfo, we did this interesting thing, and David was also involved in this, where we were going to roll out a new packaging for a product. We created a Figma for that whole experience, and we did incentivize surveys with our customers. So we would send the Figma link to them, and this is clickable prototype of the Figma. And we will say, okay, just go ahead and play with Figma while we sit and wait, see it. So they would just go in and click on different places on the Figma, and we will see which buttons they are clicking, what exactly they were hoping. And they will kind of talk through it. Oh, I was thinking the reports would be there. Oh, I thought I could drill down into this particular piece. So they would kind of give you all these thoughts as they work through the Figma, and you're sitting back here and you're looking at how exactly they're doing. That is another way in which you can validate. That is even more interesting when you're launching out a feature rather than a whole product. But there are multiple ways to validate an idea. We have a question.
Yeah, there's a couple. I'll read the one from Justin and we'll work our way up. So what do you do if someone won't buy the first scooter, they only want the third motorized scooter?
Yeah, That is usually what we think, but that is in most cases, just in my experience, that is not fully true, right? That is the scoping element that we are talking about. In my experience, if the customer says that they need a lot more features to buy the first version, either your core is not the right one or you did not scope it right. In most of the cases, I've seen that people use, if the core is solving the problem that they have, they will use it. Even if it is super buggy or anything like that, they will still use it. I can give my own example. Back in 2012, 2013, there was this product called Mailbox that Dropbox acquired. That was the new generation of Mailbox client. Now Superhuman is the latest thing. Back then it was Mailbox. It was a beautiful product, well crafted, had a lot of bugs. But I kept using that because it was solving core problems for me, like snoozing of email, send later, some of these core problems of emailing experience that are very normal today. Back then it was not that normal. So I kept using that because it was so critical for me, although it was completely filled with bugs. So there are some cases, Justin, I wouldn't say that it's always, there are some cases where you have to build it up to a point where it needs to be at some place before you can sell. Like, I don't know, if you're building like a solar scooter or like a manufacturing plant or something like that, then you obviously need to build it to a pretty sizable landing before somebody would buy. But in most cases, you can scope it down and come up with a simple scooter before you go to the motorized one.
I think Hillary's question is related. So it's, how do you identify the right problem to solve, when customers are grappling with several problems, and how do you prioritize the right solution to tackle?
Yeah, like you can actually ask the customers to do it, Hillary. If they are giving you multiple problems, then you can say, if I give you $100, where would you put $50 out of this to solve which problem, right? Just asking that question about the $100. Hey, here is $100. Put this dollar in the 3 problems that you have. You would immediately see that they will put $60 on one problem and 30 on another and 10 on the next one. There's always that Pareto principle at some level. If your product solves 20%, you can build 20% that solves 80% of the problem. And in most cases, customers will be happy with that. So you can simply ask the customer to tell you exactly which one you should solve. And then, of course, you keep going down like the Figma, the hard-coded version, and keep taking it's a very iterative process.
Okay, there's another great question from Arjun here. How do you evaluate at what stage of MVP you start charging the customer? Do you start with the first stage as a freemium and then charge at stage 2 or 3?
That's a good question. I think that I am of the opinion that you should charge as early as possible. And I don't really care about how much you charge initially. And we have a bunch of pricing slides and we can talk in detail about pricing. But I am of the opinion that if you manage to make the customer take the credit card out of their pocket, then that is a battle half won. Even if that is just for like $1 or $2, if you are able to do that, then this means that you are on the right track. You can look at some of the products, right? Like Superhuman, again, I can go back to that example. Because of the hype around Superhuman, you cannot do the free trial of Superhuman without putting your credit card. They will activate you first before giving you access. And they are fine with it because the hype is kind of carrying them. But if you look at most of the mail client plugins, you can go there and free trial it for 7 days or 14 days without putting the credit card, and then they will ask for credit card. But since Superhuman can afford to do it, they are asking for a credit card and making people pay with that credit card. So they won't charge you for the first 7 or 14 days, but you still manage to make the customer take the credit card out of the pocket. So that is what I would value, Arun. So the earlier you can do that, the better. I wouldn't care about how much you are charging in the first version. Don't worry about it. Charge them $1, $10, $100, $1,000. You can always change that. Nobody cares. And if you are really worried, all you do is in the first version, put a beta on top of your logo. And then you can see that, oh, that was beta pricing. Our actual pricing is this, right? When you launch properly. So it really doesn't matter. The MVP keeps evolving over a period of time. When do you stop, reevaluate, incorporate changes to the initial version? Yeah, that's a good question. The MVP and the whole product market fit, it's kind of like a ever evolving situation. I wouldn't say that there's no necessarily a stopping part. There is an MVP, and the key is to have an MVP and put it out to the customers, hear their feedback before you iterate. That is where you have to optimize. In my experience, if the product manager is able to scope the things right, for most of the software products, an MVP can be built somewhere between 3 to 5 months. In my opinion, if it is crossing 5th month to 6th month and 8th month and 9th month, then it means either the scoping is right or the engineers are building too slow, something is happening. So if anyone tells me that, hey, we have been 7 months in and we have not launched an MVP so far, I kind of ask a lot of questions as to why that's happening. In some cases that might be okay, but in most cases that's probably not okay. So if you're looking for a thumb rule, then I would say that whatever you can build it in 3 to 4 months, 3 months probably, because it'll always take more than 3 months if you say 3 months. So that is probably a good thumb rule to decide on an MVP with, let's say, somewhere between 3 to 5 people. So one Scrum team, take 3 months, and what can you build is probably a right scoping for an MVP. Okay, let's keep going. Now that we have built the MVP, the more interesting challenges are appearing, which is the pricing. Pricing is super tough, guys. Like I said, I've launched multiple products, like 8 products. Pricing is very difficult. In fact, when I launched my kind of successful the 5th product, right, that I had no idea. My team asked me, how much should we price? And I said, I have no idea how much to price this. And this is, again, my first rodeo, right? So I didn't know how to do it. So what we did is we ended up putting a slider between 0 to 30, and the customers can come, move the slider along, and we'll put the slider at some place and pay. We initially put it 0 to 30, and we found that a lot of people love 0. So we moved the 0 to like 2. So the slider was between 2 to 30, and we actually saw some customers putting it at $5, $4, like that. So it's a very difficult endeavor to do. But since then, I have been able to find a few ways in which we can define pricing or get to some form of a starting pricing. Before we get to the tactics of how to get there, I actually think that pricing goes way beyond than simply pricing. Pricing is like how much customers are going to pay and how much we are going to get in terms of profit and gross sales and all of that. I think it goes way beyond that. Pricing defines everything else, in my opinion. So the product that you build is very dependent on the pricing that you have, right? Like, let me push this once more so that I can go into the next one. Okay, so if you are selling to an SMB, your pricing will be something, right? If you are selling to an SMB, what you're talking about is $100 to like $1,000 a month or something like that is probably an SMB pricing. But if you're looking at a mid-market, then you're talking about something like $1,000 to something like $5,000 or $8,000 per month kind of a pricing. If you're going enterprise, you're talking about $150,000 to, I don't know, $2 million or something like that. But this is not just the pricing. Depending on this pricing that you can command in the market, the product varies. Because if you are building something for the SMB, the product should be less complicated because there aren't enough people to learn the product. So the product has to be less complicated. It needs to have more features because they are trying to get more done with less money. That's an SMB mindset. Think HubSpot, right? HubSpot is a really good example. HubSpot, with money that you pay, they give you a lot of things, right? And that's a very SMB mindset. If you go watch Dharmesh and Brian's conversations, there was a latest one on SaaStr. If you guys haven't watched, it's a really good presentation. They talk about how it's a very SMB mindset. So if you're building for SMB, then your product changes, your pricing changes, your go-to-market changes, right? Imagine that you are only able to charge like $100 per month for your product, right? So you get $1,200 a year. You cannot put an SDR account executive to sell that product because you wouldn't make enough money to pay commissions to them. So in those cases, your GTM changes. You cannot go to market with sales-led motion. You have to go through a product-led motion or a marketing-led motion. And then the customer success changes. If it is a $100 per month product, then you cannot have a customer success hand holding them. So it has to be a self-serve motion. Again, it goes back to the product. So the whole cycle of how to build a product, what are the levers of pricing, the GTM, how to go to market, how do you do the serving of your existing customers through customer success, and then the customer segment, everything revolves around pricing. So you have to be really careful and think through the pricing. Again, the first pricing, I worry less about it, but pricing as a philosophy is something that product managers have to think a lot all the time. Even if you start at zero and get to $1 billion in revenue with ZoomInfo has crossed, we still think about pricing all the time. And a nuance to that is it's not only the pricing, but also the levers of pricing, right? How do you charge more to your customers, right? Obvious answer is when you deliver more value, you can ask for more money. That's obvious. But how do you do it? I'll give a few examples. If like ZoomInfo sales voice platform charges per seat. So there is a platform fee and then there is a per seat fee, right? So that is the way in which as you add more seats, ZoomInfo makes more money. That's one model, good. There is what is a good, Stripe, all of you know Stripe. Stripe is another example. You integrate Stripe, sometimes you get the platform for free, sometimes there is a platform fee to integrate Stripe. And then Stripe makes a commission every time you go, not a commission, they make a cut out of every transaction. So as your GMV, the gross merchandise value increases, Stripe will keep making more and more money that way. So Stripe's model is actually a zero touch upsales motion, right? As you scale your business, Stripe would make more money. Simple as that. HubSpot makes money with the platform and all the add-ons, right? There is the CRM hub, the service hub, the this hub, the that hub. So you have to pay more. On top of that, they also charge you per contact. So 1,000 contacts is one pricing, 2,000 contacts is one pricing, 5,000 contacts is another pricing. So that is also kind of a zero touch model, because if you're a successful marketing organization, then your contacts would increase. As your contacts increase, you pay more to HubSpot, right? Some companies charge per API calls. So do you want to just charge per API calls? One call, 0.01 cent. You can do that, but there's no predictability in that. So what does the API companies do? They do bands, 0 to 10,000 calls, $99 a month. 10,000 to $100,000, $199 a month with an overage of 0.02 cents per additional call. So you know what I'm saying? I don't have time to like really go into the details of the levers, but that is the other really important piece of the pricing. So in my opinion, pricing is like a very critical piece of the puzzle. And let me talk about, let me give an example of how I was thinking about everything that I talked about, right? This is about my second company, and this image is an actual slide from one of the investment decks that I did. So as I said, Incent.ai was my company that ZoomInfo acquired. It was a conversational marketing platform. And this slide I created back in 2019, January or something like that. The B2B marketing automation landscape, which many of you might be familiar with. So the SMBs go with MailChimp, which recently got acquired. Then HubSpot is the SMB. And then upper mid-market, lower enterprise is combination of Pardot and Marketo. And the big enterprises go for Oracle, right? There is a clear segmentation and everything changes. MailChimp does not have all the bells and whistles. HubSpot has a little bit more bells and whistles. Marketo has a lot of configurations. Eloqua is like very customizable. You need a marketing operations person. I was kind of saying that it's the same on the conversational engagement landscape. Also, there are these smaller players who are serving mostly SMB. At that point, Drift was more focused on the SMB. Since then, they have actually moved up to the enterprises. I thought that there was a space in the upper mid-market for a conversational marketing platform that was driving more of the account-based marketing and those kinds of motions. So I wanted to position Incent here. So when I started with Incent, I made sure that my pricing was there, right? My first sales, I closed at $500 a month, which is $6,000 ASP, not bad. My next call, I said $750. The next one, I said $600. I kept saying different prices in the first, I don't know, a bunch of calls. And I figured out that something along the lines of up to $1,200 a month is what the customers were happy to pay. And we kind of optimized for that, and we started pricing the product like that. So I just wanted to say how important pricing is and how do you get there. Now, coming to the tactics of how do you price your product if you are a product manager. At a very high level, there are, in my opinion, two kinds of products. And this is not a theory. This is something that I think about. It's my framework. there are a bunch of products that will help you save time. And there are a bunch of products that help you make more money, like return on investment. Both are money, but one is saving time money, one is actually making more money. And a lot of tools are a combination of this. In my opinion, the best tools are a combination of this. I'll give examples. Zendesk. Zendesk is a customer support ticketing system, right? So what does it do? It will really help save time for your customer support people. That's what it boils down to. Salesforce's core CRM platform, it helps you arrange yourself. It helps to move the deals in the right way so that it's an efficiency thing. It's a tooling. Without that tooling, you would have to spend a lot more time managing things on Excel. So, Zendesk can say something like, if you have a 10 people customer support team, you can save 6 hours on an average every week into 60 hours every week. This is what it boils down to, right? That's how Zendesk can think, or people who are buying Zendesk can think about it. The products that are helping you make more money, example, we were talking about Drift. Drift is a good example of that, right? What Drift is saying is, put our chat platform on your website, we will make more money for you, right? That's what ZoomInfo chat also says. So it's an ROI game. It's not really tooling. There is a tooling component, but it's more like you put the chat, we're going to convert 15% more leads from your website for you, right? That's what it boils down to. Another example is something like Google Ads or Facebook Ads or Twitter Ads or whatever ads products, a bunch of them. Ads are total ROI products. You put $1, you want to make sure $4 come out of it, right? So that's a pure ROI product. Now, this is important when you start thinking about how do you price it? Based on this is how you price things. Like, for example, the first one is competition-based pricing. We are getting into the tactics of the pricing. How much does the competition pay, right? Like, how charge your customers? It's pretty easy for you to figure that out. Go to G2, go to Capterra, go to all these places, get the list of your competitors, go to their website and see how much they are charging. Check their pricing page. If they are not giving you any information, ask a friend to take a demo with that company so that you know how much they are pricing. They do it. And so that company is also doing the same with your company. So don't feel bad about doing that. So just make sure that you understand how the competition is charging. Also understand the levers based on which the competition is charging. For example, what is a good example to say? Salesforce charges per contact. HubSpot charges per number of contacts stored, but Outreach does not charge per number of contacts, right? So that's a good example of similar customer segment, similar buyer, but different levers. So you need to understand how much the competitor is pricing and what are the levers that they are using. And then you can figure out, okay, here is the pricing, here's the lever. So that's the first way in which I really like to set some benchmark. The second one is budget-based. Like, if you are going and saying that, okay, I want to sell to individual salespeople, they are going to put my product on their own credit card, right? There are a lot of tools like that. If that is the case, then in most companies, that credit card limit for a salesperson is between $150 to $300 per month. So your product cannot ask the salesperson to put $500 because their company credit card only allows them to put $150. So the budget there is only $150. So you need to know the budget before you put your pricing. If you are selling to marketing, you have more budget. If you are selling to sales, you probably have more budget. But if you are selling to customer success, you do not have enough, that level of, it's not the same budget. So how much budget you have in a given company in your customer segment is the other thing that you got to really think through, or that helps you put some thumb rules or guardrails around your pricing. Then the third thing is value-based pricing, right? You can say something like, we will generate 15% more leads for you. One lead would mean an additional $1,000 for you. So your 15% would mean additional $15,000 per month for you. So I want to take 10% of that. So that's another way in which you can think about it, right? By using my product, they are either saving X hours of time or they are making X dollars in additional, and I want to take 10% of that or 15%, whatever that percentage is. That can give you some thumb rule. And this will also help you explain it to your customer in terms of what is the return on investment that you're getting when you're buying my product. So that is the value-based pricing, is the is the third thing that I've really seen customers doing. The fourth is just trial based, right? You have no idea. You're just going to drop a bunch of numbers based on some educated guesses and will go up and down based on what the customer are saying. You will see when you present the pricing on Zoom, if they are like, okay, that's fine. Then you are like, okay, you are underselling and you have money left on the table. If they fall off their chair, the moment you tell the pricing, you are at too high. Bring it down a little bit and figure it out from there. So does that, hopefully that all makes sense. This is how I think about pricing. Taking a slight step back, and we do not have all the time to talk about this, so I'm just going to show you one example and get to it. I always think about products with product principles. This was an actual slide that I presented in when I took over the product role at ZoomInfo. I kind of sent this to a bunch of people. And at a very, very, very high level, for each product, I have different product principles that talk about that particular product. But at a very high level, this is how I think about product building. You have to build common sense product, right? If you talk about a simple product idea, then your customer should be able to immediately like, yeah, that makes sense. That's so obvious. Why didn't I do it before, right? Like that, those should be the features that you roll out. It shouldn't be like 5 minutes of explanation and the customer is like, yeah, I think I get it, right? So build common sense products. Then focus on building the moat, right? You need to figure out some way in which you are differentiated over a period of time. Understanding the pivot. One thing that I always tell product managers is, or your company has a DNA, right? You should know what is your DNA. Like ZoomInfo, for example, is very strong on our go-to-market. That's a core DNA of the product. We are probably in the top 5 in the world or something when it comes to go-to-market. So that's very important to know that that is the DNA of the company and we can really leverage that. And when you look at the product capability of ZoomInfo, our data is literally the best in the world. So when you build products at ZoomInfo, you have to make sure that you are using that data asset that we have to build the products on top of that. So when you are a product manager, you have to think about what is the strong part of my company and what are the strongest elements on the product side and kind of double down deeper there. So that is where the moat also comes, right? Like ZoomInfo, as we build more and more on top of our data, the moat deepens and deepens because the data is the best. Everything we build on top of that will also be really good. One thing that I don't see product managers doing enough is to develop a point of view. You should have very strong opinions. I actually think that I tell this to all my team members, and David probably has heard me say this many times. Customers don't pay us to use our service. Customers also pay us so that we can take some decisions on behalf of them. And Steve Jobs used to do this all the time, right? He did not put Adobe Flash back in the day, or Macromedia Flash back in the day, into iPhone. That was a big problem back then, but over a period of time, yeah, Flash is nowhere. So as a product manager, as a product owner or a product builder, you should have a strong point of view of the world, and you should be able to put that into your product, right? And define those as the product principles. And the final thing, it's okay to make mistakes. Just iterate fast. That mistake, you will make mistakes. If you're not making mistakes, it means that you are being too careful and you're not really building the right innovative products. I'm gonna move fast on a couple of things. Competition, don't care about competition. Just focus on your customer and you will end up in a really good place. The last slide that I have is on the iteration fast, right? So you got some customer feedback. One of the things that I see product managers get a lot is they get customer feedback either directly from the customer or from salespeople, and they end up building the feature. So there was a question right earlier that went along the lines of, hey, like we need more features. If you had this one feature, we would buy the product. If you had this feature, we would push back very strongly as product managers. Ask questions about the question that I have found really helpful is this a real deal breaker for you, right? And in my experience, in most of the cases, things are not really deal breaker in any deals. There are very few, like if you don't have a Salesforce integration, that might be a deal breaker. But if you do not have an ability to customize the color of the text, that might not be a deal breaker. But sales people are going to push you for that. Customers are going to ask you for that. But as a product manager, you stand your ground and say, I don't think this is a very critical feature at this point in time. Let me go ask the customer whether it is a deal breaker or not. So push back. Once you push back, once you get that, then it comes up to your decision making. The simplest thumb rule that I have about decision making is it a two-door decision or a one-door decision? Which means, should I use this database or that database to put my data in of the product? That is kind of a one-door decision, because once you choose a database, you have to go on with that database for a little bit of time, right? Otherwise, it's a lot of work to go back and rework it. You can, but it's tough. Versus, should this particular button be blue or green? Or should this button be on the left hand or right side? These are all decisions that we as product managers take all the time, right? Second one is a simple two-door decision. So when you come up with any decision, I ask the question to my team, how soon should I take this decision? You know, if I don't have enough information, if I can punt that decision making a little bit down the line, I will do it. You know, I can take it after 10 days. Sure, I'm going to wait for 10 days to see if I can get more information. Second thing is, I think to myself, is it a two-door decision or a one-door decision? If it is a two-door decision, gut feeling, intuitively, whatever I feel is the right decision, I would just take and run with it. That's about it. Finally, design and build fast. And then go back to customers, push back, decision making, design and build. So this is kind of like how I think about features, product, and everything. That's pretty much what I had.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Arjun. And we have a couple minutes for a question or two if anybody wants to drop one in the chat or just jump in. But Arjun, love all your real life examples from your experience and some really practical takeaways, particularly when it came to the MVP approach and pricing. So I love that. Guys, I'm going to drop a link just while I've got everyone's attention for a survey. We'd love to get your input on the session. And just as we're kind of wrapping up here, I'm going to share the slide again with the info for our in-person event in 2 weeks. So thanks for come join us in a couple of weeks if you're available. Reach out to us on LinkedIn, connect with us. We'd love to hear from you if you want to get involved with BPMA. But once again, I just want to take the time to thank Arjun for this awesome session. I hope you guys found value in it. And do fill out the survey, give us feedback. What did you like? What would you like us to do better next time? We'd love to hear from you. So let me just see if we have anything on it. Looks like we don't have any additional questions, but so I think we can wrap it up. The session's recorded. We do post it online, so you can look out for that and share if there's anyone that wanted to be here and couldn't make it. So once again, thank you everybody for joining us today. Connect with us, and Arjun, once again, awesome session. Love having you today. All right. Well,
thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.